Oh, welcome back to the Sportsball Podcast, your source for sports. I am Nate, hosting this week alongside Andy and Zach, and we're kind of hitting the doldrums of sports world, as you can see by my little banner here. Sports are kind of dead. We got kind of the last gasps of the NBA Finals and the NHL Stanley Cup Finals coming up here shortly, but after that, it is baseball for the foreseeable future, which is a sport, but it is a sport. So we are going to shift gears for just a moment and talk about some upcoming sports that we're we've had some already interesting discussions about off recording so far. So I can only imagine this is gonna transition into something fantastic as we go further. But as you all know, as we get later into the summer, I believe kind of that end of July, early August timeframe, the Olympics are going to be getting going in Paris, and there are certainly some interesting entrants for sports that we're going to be tuning into just to understand why, and just kind of I know we've talked about
like this isn't the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
No, not during the Olympics. I'm talking Alita. All these random commercials that they keep having on TV that are saying, "Hey, Olympics 2024 in Paris." That's all I'm in it for. Once they start, I'll forget.
But yeah, we've I mean, there are certainly some interesting storylines. I mean, personally, I'm really intrigued by just the basketball. I think that'll be interesting to see. It'll be kind of I don't know, last dance, if you will, for like LeBron, and Steph will be on the team for I think the first time, and you'll have KD probably making his last Olympics appearance for the national team, and you'll have some younger guys. I believe Anthony Edwards will be on there. I think Halliburton made it as well, so it'll be interesting to see how everything kind of meshes with that. But yeah, anything you guys are stands out, or are you looking forward to?
And I know we just talked about this a little bit ago, but I want to start with this because I wanted to Google and be like, let's just look up a list of like what's new in 2024. And we were talking about breakdancing before we started recording.
Mm-hmm.
So I Googled this, and on the Olympics website, they're showing me a picture. Not a sponsor, by the way, but this I thought was funny because like as I'm looking this up, I see this picture, which, great picture. And for those that are audio listeners only, we see a guy on his head doing breakdancing. That's not the funny part. The funny part is his name is Mariano Carvajal. Sorry if I mispronounced that. His breakdancing name is B-Boy Brawley.
Oh,
Ooh.
So, followed by the Olympics ooze tradition. I'm very confused. I'm going to be honest. Breakdancing, I'm confused. But nonetheless, here we are. B-Boy Brawley.
I'm all for it. I'm just, like I said off recording, I'm just interested to see how they, like, what metrics they use to judge it. Because that could be, I'm sure there are legitimate ones. I just have no idea what they are, and I'm very interested to learn what they
that's actually detailed here.
Well, don't tell me now. It's gotta be a surprise.
It's a surprise for later.
Fair, but like a lot of it makes sense. It's like common sense type stuff, but I'm curious how much it's weighted. So
well, don't make it sound lame either.
But like going back to the point, like it's breakdancing. Like there's obvious categories in terms of just dancing, but like,
yeah,
what are you using to judge this?
Mm-hmm.
Also, fun fact about breakdancing: there are 16 men and 16 women that will compete, and they're known as B-boys and B-girls.
Oh.
So, darn it, here I was. I thought B-Boy Brawley was like his DJ name. Waka waka waka. Nope. That's what they call breakdancers.
Dang.
Anyway, continue on. Dang. I got my piece out so far.
I mean, I think yes, like Nate said, basketball probably will be the most known one where we know the majority of the athletes involved. I mean, just for gymnastics, I mean, you'll have Simone Biles that I think a lot of us and a lot of people will pay attention to because that's a name that we've known from past Olympics past and her success and everything like that. But outside of that, I mean, personally for me, I would know more of like golf, of the golfers involved in terms of who would be playing in the Olympics. And I think how they judge who gets to go per team is like the top 4 golfers in the world from each country get to be involved in the Olympics. So like, you know, obviously the USA is going to send Scotty Scheffler. And then I think it's like the other top 3 highest ranked golfers from the United States. And like, you know, Europe will send, or I guess it'd be by country. So like Ireland would send Rory and then Spain would send John Rahm, like so on and so forth. And those guys. So from a personal standpoint, I would know like more of the golfers involved.
Can we send a convicted felon to the Olympics?
Well, the charges were dropped, so it wasn't really a convicted felon.
I mean, there's a mugshot.
It was a suggested charge.
I don't make the rules, Andy. I'm just asking. I'm just asking the question.
I mean, we won't get political.
We just did.
There's nothing says. There's nothing that says a convicted felon can't be the president either. So, stupid rule, but you know it is what it is.
Darn Constitution, yes. Anyway.
But yeah, I think like Nate said, from a basketball standpoint, it's a lot of the older generation of their kind of last hoorah of getting through their last Olympic qualifying. And I mean, you look at, especially LeBron, who had played on teams with like Allen Iverson, Kobe, Shaq, like, he's been to plenty of these Olympic games, and, same with KD and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's going to be kind of the last grasp. And I mean, this applies to the NBA too, is you're going to start seeing kind of the phasing out of these veteran players that we've watched growing up of Steph, LeBron, KD, Chris Paul, Russ, all of them, and then you start airing in the new era of Jokic and I'm sure I'm missing guys. Luka technically is kind of the newer age. He's kind of middle of the pack between the old and new, but
he's young. He's younger than you.
Yeah. I mean,
we're using.
I just feel like
we're using our ages as the game here. God dang, that means we're old.
I know. But I mean, yeah, basketball is going to be fun, and it's always sort of a given that they should get gold, considering most of your prospects of all these Olympic teams are coming from the NBA. But it's never out of the question that you're going to lose to wherever Jokic and Luka come from.
Serbia and Slovenia for those keeping track at home.
Yeah, but there's not a guarantee that they'll beat them if they ever face, but I feel like the USA should have more of the star power, but it's never a given. I think there was a year that they didn't get gold, and it was kind of a surprise to everybody that they didn't get gold. But yeah, it's going to be fun to watch that. What else do we need to look at that's really off the wall?
I would
field hockey.
I was gonna say real quick on the basketball part, I'd be curious because like Canada apparently has been getting like huge into basketball, and like Canada's gotten. Like,
name me a Canadian basketball player.
Shea Gilgeous.
Not like that. I gotta know
who
that.
cares about him?
Andrew Wiggins.
But like that's.
Who really cares about Andrew Wiggins?
But like
me
basketball,
about 10 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. But like basketball has taken off tremendously in Canada in the past like decade, whereas like hockey apparently is on the decline. Kind of. We'll get there, but like I don't know. It's just interesting. I think they could be a what's the word? Dark horse.
Yeah. I think a lot of our gripe with the Olympics was how they named their events and like what is categorized under their events. Because like what I said earlier, athletics is a category for the Olympics, which is just track and field. So why not just call it track and field? Why is it just called athletics? Like everything under the athletics category of what is run or what is done in that category is just track and field events. So just call it track and field. Most people know it by that.
Isn't that essentially what the Olympics have always been, though? Is like track and field events, and it's just grown from that. Like to me, I don't know. Like as much as I didn't like track and field in high school, like that's the first sport ever or whatever, because people used to run around in circles for fun. Like that's what the Olympics are celebrating, probably in a more spectacular, wording than that. But regardless, like, I don't know.
But I mean, we all collectively agree that the Winter Olympics are the GOAT by far, and that's 100% because of curling. That's not up for debate at all.
Yeah, there's nothing like being up at 3, watching people throw discs across some ice,
and you're like, this is the life. This is what we stayed up for. But boy, was that a magical run, and we'll never forget it.
Yep.
Where are they supposed to? Do we know where they're supposed to take place yet?
The Winter Olympics?
Yeah.
No, I have no idea.
I'm sure it's somewhere. But...
Well, I could have gathered it was going to be
figure
somewhere.
that out in the winter.
I'll figure it out in the winter.
Milan, it looks like.
Oh, yeah, Italy. And then LA will, I do remember that coming out, that LA will get the 2028 Summer Olympics. So
LA getting the Winter Olympics is going to be...
That'd be hella tight. Hella tight.
That would make total sense, especially from with Mr. Meteorology here. LA is known for their harsh winters.
Yeah.
Last time I checked, they were known for mountains of snow.
What's really, 2026
of 60-degree temperatures.
Right. 2026 will be fun because that'll be when the U.S. gets the World Cup that summer, and then the winter we'll have the Winter Olympics. So that's going to be like a big general, just overall sports year in terms of just big events happening. So, but yeah, that's good to know. And then, we just love curling. Can't get enough of it. Can't get enough of it.
Now we officially have to make sure that this thing lasts for another 2 years so we can talk about curling in 2 years. Hope you guys weren't thinking about quitting at any point. We can't now.
Nope. We're in for the long haul. Oh, but yeah,
I was just looking through like some of the events, and I gotta say the one that I think stands out the most to me is artistic swimming.
Hell yeah.
Synchronized swimming. I know what it means, but
it's synchronized swimming.
My brain thinks they're like painting wild, like doing a breaststroke.
And this isn't even necessarily that it's not making a new debut. The only debut that's new is, if I'm reading this correctly, is that men are included in it now. So it used to be, it's been a thing. My favorite, though, is as I'm reading through this, it's like in this Summer Olympics round, this sport, so I think breakdancing might be in this, or breaking, sorry, might be in this category, but then it will not be in the 2028. Like, what? Why? like, let's add it and then take it away. What's the logic there? Does LA not have enough room for breakers? Some are saying
it's to build anticipation. If you only get it every 8 years, people want it more.
I'd sit here and say 8 years is so far away, but yet it feels like it'll be here next week. So that's fair.
Yeah,
we're gonna be sitting here and so be like, oh, like it's been 8 years since we saw breakdancing. We're probably gonna have the same discussion when we're talking about it in 8 years. Like,
wait, they're called
why is that a thing?
Oh man,
oh man, this is great. I love it. I saw that skateboarding's coming back too, or not?
Yeah.
Well, like I was like, I didn't realize.
Man.
I never even realized that wasn't an Olympic. Like, it's been an Olympic thing before, but I always thought that was like reserved for like the X Games specifically. It always just felt like a very like X Gamesy thing. So I mean, in the Olympics, it makes sense, but to me, it was like there's a separate. Like, I don't know why I thought X Games was rivaling the Olympics, but I guess I was. So here we are.
Man, but the Sean White was just awesome to watch.
Flying.
And I think that's what most people associate kind of the X Games Tony Hawk for sure, but I think Sean White is very much second or first, depending on who you ask, in terms of just notable skateboarders that people would know.
I thought Sean White snowboarded.
Or is he snowboarding?
Yeah.
You might be right. It might be snowboarding.
I mean, he probably can skateboard. I just don't.
You could probably do both if you do one or the other.
Turns out there might be some overlap there. But
one's just on snow, and the other's not.
One's on snow, which is known to be a little softer. The other one's on hard wheels, generally on a hard,
notably
board
more hard.
surface. I'm gonna take my vote in the snow.
Sailing. Oh, God.
Sailing, yeah, volleyball. Volleyball will be interesting too. We'll have probably quite a few Nebraska alum on that.
Yes, yes, you are right with that. I don't know about the men. Men would just, who knows? I have no idea.
Yep.
I can't tell you enough about men's volleyball to be confident that I know what is happening and who is on what team.
I will support it though.
I will support it.
Kayak, whatever kayak cross is. Kayak cross debuts at the Paris Games. There's a lot of interesting stuff. I'm still just hung up on breakdancing. But only because, and we had this discussion before we started, that there's other things that I felt like should go in instead before breakdancing. Not that breakdancing can't be in it, but like
darts.
Darts was one I said, but there was another one that I think Nate brought up. Whatever it was, I was like, I don't remember what it was. And it's gone now.
Gone forever.
Oh well, there it goes.
Aaron Hernandez.
Oh.
Hey now. Hey now.
Flag football will make its debut in LA. It's not even this Olympics.
Well.
Well, wait 4 more years. We're gonna get NFL players playing Olympic football in the summer.
Yeah. So I'm curious if that actually takes off though too, because like
I'm sure we will know more about it once it gets closer to 2028. Kind of like who's allowed to play, who's like what's the requirement to be, an NFL, American football Olympic sport guy. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be the same guidelines as kind of like what the NBA does for basketball right now in terms of who's allowed to go play in the Olympics or not. But I don't know.
What's the limit or like what's the rule set for them?
Well,
be good.
Yeah.
So
be really good.
Well, I guess no offense, guys. I think that might leave us out. We will. You will probably not see us three playing flag football at the Las Vegas.
What do you mean?
Hey,
dare to dream, Zach.
Don't rule anything out.
I mean, I guess we do got 4 years to train. Anything's possible.
Exactly, and we only need 2.
Yeah.
Well, that's if you're. Well, it depends. Are you training for the Winter Olympics too?
No.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced. Nate's gonna join a bobsled team.
Oh yeah, congrats, man.
Thanks. I'm gonna go hurtling into orbit at 400 miles an hour.
No. You'll keep it in the track, whatever it's called, the luge or whatever.
Man, who let Joel Embiid be on the Olympic team? Why is he on it?
Probably the NBA.
He's
probably
average.
I feel like Nate has. I feel like
Those
Nate
are
has.
words.
They're
has
true
feelings
words.
about that.
He might be pretty tall, and
Oh no, they play Serbia game 1.
hell yeah.
Oh no. Well, shoot. Sorry, USA. You ain't winning.
Good start.
Just put Ant on Jokic and have him talk smack all game.
That ain't gonna go well for anybody.
Well, the good news is Ant should be rest up by that time.
Hey.
Oh,
what a transition into the sad segment of the podcast.
No.
Speaking of,
No.
Whoa, how'd that happen?
Let's go over to NBA.
No.
Segues are weird.
The NBA season is still going on, according to some people. So,
according to most people, there are still games to be played. And by most people, probably 99.99% of the population out there.
It was, I mean, I think the last time we recorded, I believe Minnesota was going into the Denver series.
That
they were at least starting it.
I think they were somewhat in it.
Yeah, and that was quite a roller coaster of a series for a fan. And I mean, if you kind of watched how the rest of the Timberwolves season went, I think it kind of took a lot out of them down the stretch there as well. But they won the first 2 games in Denver, then they dropped 3 straight, 2 of them at home, 1 in Denver. Then they came back, won Game 6 in Minnesota to force Game 7 in Denver, and made it to the Western Conference Finals, beating the defending NBA champions in 7 games. And it was a really weird series to watch because there were like 2 games that were reasonably close, and then everything else was like at least a 20-point blowout. So I don't know what that means, but it was fun to watch, and it was a cool aspect of the season for, I mean, I'll reminisce a little bit, I guess, once I recap what happened after that, because they then went on to face Dallas in the Western Conference Finals, and if you watched any of that, they looked fairly gassed, except for the desperation Game 4, where they kind of seemed like they just wanted to get at least 1 win, and then were pretty content with taking the rest of the summer off. So
they saw those Cancun photos from other teams and were like, oh, that looks nice.
Yep. Man, margarita right now
versus staying hydrated and in shape and in fit. Ugh,
yep.
Who would do that?
Well, and I'd wonder too, in regards to the Timberwolves, because I know like it came out after the Suns had their run to the finals. And I mean, technically they made it a little bit further, but point still stands. They hadn't been to the playoffs for so long, like they weren't just quite conditioned enough. I mean, their run to the finals was pretty dominant up until the end against the Bucks. But I mean, it was one of those things where like the Bucks just were better conditioned. Which is ironic because now the coach that ended up beating the Suns in the finals is now the head coach of the Suns, which to me just says that's who they wanted to get last year, but he was not convinced at the time or whatever. But it's just, I wondered if it was the same thing for the Timberwolves, where it was just like they tried. It was just they were not that they weren't conditioned, but it was like the extra amount of games that they were not used to it starts to take a toll on you.
Yeah, and I know there was some discussion about that and kind of like the post-series interviews and stuff where like even Anthony Edwards is just like we weren't really expecting, to be playing into June. I mean, they're glad to be there, but if you look at all the predictions that you're getting this season, well, I think they were predicted for like 44 wins and like maybe to be a play-in team at most.
I was going to say the Timberwolves, if nothing else, have nothing to be upset about in this. I just about said semester. This should tell you how fried I am.
Semester
this season, bro. I don't even know. I don't know.
You haven't been in college in years.
Thanks. Once again, let's make me feel old. Appreciate it. But no, in this season, they have nothing really to be upset about. I mean, granted, there is always the what if, but I will say, I think in my head, for your case, being as a team following a team that made it to the finals and then won the first 2 games and then lost everything after that, I would say I would much rather have had it where they lost just before that, as much as that sucks, rather than that, because it was like, but
yeah, and it's always, a toss up at that point because it's there's no guarantee season to season that you're going to be back where you were, and
Suns are a proof positive of that.
Yep.
So,
yep. And I mean, the Timberwolves hopefully will be keeping most of their core together and just for the most part be running it back. But I mean, there's any number of factors that can contribute to things just not working out. And I mean,
it also seems
the ultimate example is OKC back in the 2010s when you had Russ, Katie, Harden made the finals, I believe,
and never won.
And they lost that year, and then team broke up that summer, and that was it.
I think in your defense, though, compared, to like that team and then the Suns as well in the recent event or in the recent comparison, is that it seems like the Timberwolves have a good core that actually play well together, and they have a good head coach. The Suns at the time had a good head coach, I thought, but they had also DeAndre Ayton, who did not just want to play. He was like, yeah, we made it to the finals. We might not have won. I don't care anymore. Got my money. It's like, bro. Granted, on the same side of that, if I got told like I was going to make $34 million a year for going out and shooting a basketball, well, I understand there's more to it than that. But like, if I was going to get told to do that, I'd be like, I might slack off a little bit here and there too. So what do you know? What do you get?
Yep. And it's, I mean, the good news is, Anthony Edwards is still 22. I think Jaden McDaniels is 22 or 23. Naz Reid, I think, is 23. Cat's 28. It's a little up there, but I mean, there's a good core of young players that should help to kind of keep things balanced into the future. It's just, I mean, once you start getting to, that Western Conference Finals and NBA Finals, like, there is just a very small margin for error, and it comes down to a lot of the details. And I thought the Dallas Minnesota series was actually a really good example of that, because Dallas was just very, like, Luka and Kyrie were very surgical. And like when they needed it to be, they weren't going hard the entire game. For most of the games, they were just keeping it, within reach, and then they would get to the fourth quarter, and then they knew how to get to their spots to make their shots or to make their passes and set their guys up, and it was very much a clinic. As much as I am not a huge fan of Kyrie, he's a very, very good basketball player, and Luka,
problematic person
Luka is as well. And,
I am kind of surprised he's so good at basketball, considering that he's scared of spheres.
He is scared of spheres,
right? But I mean, it was a fun season, and I hope that there are more to come. It's all I'm asking for. It was exciting to be a part of a sports team that actually sees some success. Haven't had a whole lot of those under my belt, so
the worst part, though,
Nate, as long as I can.
The worst part, though, is that it led to similar to like the Super Bowl this last year, just one of the most type of. I guess Dallas might be the exciting one in the sense of like they haven't been there for a while, but it's like I don't personally care for Dallas, so but I also don't want to cheer for Boston, so it's just like I don't really care.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there'll be decent games. I mean, I think the just Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown versus Luka and Kyrie matchup is going to be solid to watch, but I'm not, I don't know, excited.
I understand why they do this, but I always thought it would be funny if they had like all these Game 7 matchups, or not Game 7, but like all these Game 7 formats, and then you get to the finals, it's like one game, go. Like whoever wins that, they're the best. Like I'm glad they don't do that, but that would be kind of funny. Just be like somehow they get one team that's just hot, and it's like, holy cow, the last game was like 140-12. It's like, what happened? I always thought that'd be interesting, but
Yeah.
I know why they don't do that. So
on that note, though, they should schedule the games better.
Yes.
We've gone way too long without hockey or baseball or basketball.
We're all fried brains over here.
And it is the championships. Like, I don't know. Like, start them at some point. Like a Tuesday, have basketball Tuesday, hockey Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Like, just
they made a really stupid deal with the TV networks that no matter what happens, the games will start, June, whatever. And it's like, well, if both the previous series get swept or like go 5 games, then you have what we have right now is a literal dead week of nothing.
I was going to say, like, we'd still be having basketball games if they were going to game 7s, wouldn't we?
Correct.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I get it.
Maybe not like tonight or maybe not last night, depending. But, like, we would have had games like well through the weekend and into last week.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So rather than having a dead week in terms of, NBA and NHL at least.
Right.
You would have. But,
you can't predict that, but like you shouldn't.
That's why you have contingency plans.
Yeah, I was going to say it's kind of weird they don't have like flex scheduling or anything.
Yeah. Like you can't predict it, but you shouldn't have something set in stone of like no matter what happens, this is what we're going to do. And it's like, why would you do that?
Right. Yep. And I mean, I guess there's probably a bunch of broadcast deals that go with it, so they probably can't. Whatever. But again, that's like, I feel like regardless, you're going to have people tune in. And they always put like in the schedules stars game 6 or game 5, 6, and 7 if necessary.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's like you could put an asterisk like going to start no later than, but could potentially be earlier. So
and I mean, if you already have the TV space blocked out for a game, like replace it with another game.
What do we know?
Yeah. Nothing that we would know. We are better at planning the schedule of these series rather than the people who actually do it.
Yeah.
They should just ask us. Listen to this podcast and let us control the sport.
Honestly. Yeah.
We would be so much better at all of this.
Balls in your court.
Literally balls in your court.
I was lamenting to you guys that I had to endure the Twins and Yankees game last night because it was like the only nationally televised sport on at all last night. And if you know anything about the Twins and Yankees together, the Twins don't win a whole lot of those games, and they typically aren't particularly close either. Bit of a nightmare scenario there. But
it is just really upsetting that the Yankees are good again this year.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
We were down 8-1 at one point, and we lost 9-5 to the Yankees tonight. So progress, I guess.
Woo.
There's our transition into baseball, I guess.
We're killing it tonight.
Kind of. I will say my only NBA talk was Alex was named to.
Sorry, Andy. We're on baseball.
Whoa!
No, I went back.
Mr. Enough. Too late.
Okay. Well, then he was named to the all baseball team already.
You got to be quicker than that.
No, Alex was named to the second all-defensive NBA team this year, where he was first team last year. But I'm still very sus about it because they changed how they voted this year and how it's usually you go like by position in terms of first team, second team, third team. Well, the NBA was like, we're just going to go positionless this year, and you can put whoever you want in the first team. So, like, of course, the first team is literally all going to be centers and power forwards. Like, that's just a given. So it's like it's kind of bias skewed because then you look at the first team and you have Kat, you have Rudy, you have Embiid, Jokic, like those types of guys. And you look at the second team and it's all guards. So it's like, it's a little skewed. So, I mean, in my mind, Alex is first team guard worthy. If you want to look at it that way, even though it says second team, but like he's the best of the guards in terms of defense. So that was his accolade, along with his other very white award of the Hustle Player of the Year. You can't tell me it's not, because it is.
if we send him a Sportsball Podcast medal, will that make up for
No.
the second team?
I hope so.
It's not gonna it's gonna have to be, because it had to be the Hustle Award, because they couldn't just put "he got that dog in him" award. I don't know.
That would have been better.
Yeah, but it just sounds that doesn't roll off the tongue.
It's so funny, because that award is like for making all the plays that don't always show up in the stat book.
That's like, this is terrible, but like that's the one where like you give the kid that played in a high school basketball game, like trying to score a free throw at the end, just like, yeah, good job, you got your props. Not saying that Alex is like that in this sense, but like that's what that award is to me. Like Alex plays better than that. But my point is like that award right there says
he's literally either diving for every single ball or taking every single charge he possibly can.
So why didn't they call it the early onset CTE award?
Correct.
Oh, no.
No, he doesn't get head-to-head that
generally
much.
Speaking, I was gonna say, generally speaking, CTE is associated with football, but he's gonna be he's gonna be a trailblazer.
Oh no!
Especially if Grayson Allen starts taking him down like he always does.
Hey,
about that.
Hey,
but it is what it is.
Yeah, Zach.
what
are your opinions here?
Yeah,
I don't care for Grayson Allen, but he is on my team, so I have to cheer for him. Kind of. And the thing is, I think he still was a little bit dirty, so that sucks. But he did play really well on the Suns when he was just playing, as in like just statistically speaking, just in that very tiny section around everything else in that little section there, he did really well. Yes. That's all I'm focusing on.
That is 100% where I was at with like that Bev. So
before we quickly transition to baseball, ESPN just gave me a great notification going back to volleyball Olympics. 3 former Huskers are headlining the volleyball team.
Ooh.
In terms of, you could probably guess who one of them is, and Jordan Larson, which is a very obvious.
No way.
Pick. No way is right. No. I know.
No.
I know, Zach.
Previous Olympian.
Hold on. Previous Olympian.
Jordan Larson is going to play in the Olympics. Wait, so that's what I was going to ask. Playing or like coaching?
Yeah, she is. Yes, from what this article says is she's playing. She's not coaching.
How old is Jordan Larson?
She's 37.
Dude.
Yeah, and
I
she's
hope
playing.
I can still like play sand volleyball. At 37.
And then the other 2 are Kelsey Robinson Cook, who will be making her 3rd Olympic appearance, and then another libero Justine Wong Orantes, yes. She was with, I think, Michaela Fecke in the 2015 volleyball era. But yeah, those are your 3 former Huskers that are headlining the Olympic team. Another one I'm not also surprised by is Dana Recke, that really 7-foot tall Wisconsin girl. Doesn't surprise me she's on it. Hated playing against her, so I'm glad that we maybe get to cheer for her for once.
Well,
maybe.
Yeah, he did say maybe.
I said maybe.
So.
But yeah, so that's little fun Olympic news update is. I mean, we were going to cheer for volleyball anyways, but now we have really more motivation to cheer on the Huskers and Olympic volleyball. But yeah, with that, we'll transition to baseball. And I think
stickball.
Besides like our own personal things, I think the biggest news that has happened the past month is Ronald Acuna Jr. Tearing his ACL and being out for the year. Considering, I mean, he is a MVP type player, and, you know, a lot of the Braves' success does hinge on him as well. Now, the Braves are not as good as they were the past couple of years, but, I mean, they were also predicted to, you know, be the front runners to take on the Dodgers to kind of go, you know, head-to-head in the World Series and anything. And, I mean, you lose a big type player like that, and suddenly, you know, it doesn't look great for the Braves going forward.
Yeah, they've already lost a couple of their pitchers,
yeah.
I think. So
yeah, so is every other team in the entire league. Certainly, Boston has lost 3/5 of its starting rotation it started the year with. So it's it's not great, and I have no idea how to fix it. But I don't know if you can. You're not going to tell guys
we're all out of ideas.
Yeah, I don't. You're not going to tell guys to not throw hard because they will.
We got to start juicing again.
That's what I'm scared about with Paul Skeens, because the dude can throw 100. Mm-hmm. I'm very afraid it's not going to last long, and he's such a good pitcher.
Yep. And my fantasy team needs him. So if you're listening, buddy.
Out of that. But yeah, I have no other baseball takes. That was the biggest one. Boston is doing exactly what I thought they would do. Well, I did say they would finish last. They still are. They're third place, so they're not as bad as I thought they would be. But what I saw a stat the other day is, by this point in the major league season, the past 4 or 5 years, Boston has been exactly 500. So they have been nothing but consistent since 2018 when they won the World Series. They've just been really bad at it.
Not even just consistent, not just consistent, but also average.
Yes, they have been literally average since they won the World Series in 2018.
Consistently average.
Now, yes, there's a lot of that venture to trading away literally every franchise player that they have. Yeah, who's to say?
I hear that's good. It's healthy.
Not when you trade Mookie Betts to the Dodgers, man. I'm still not over that. I don't know how
I didn't say it was good. I just said it was healthy.
And then the fun part, I had probably talked about this last time, the Chris Sale trade. And then the first time he faces the Red Sox being on the Braves, he shuts them out. It's like, cool. Love that. What a big middle finger to Boston.
Well, I mean, think about it, though. It's like, I know how you guys swing the ball.
Yeah.
Swing the bat.
It's true.
So he knew,
it's just a big F you to me. It's what it is. That's my professional major league takes. I would definitely have a lot to say about college baseball.
Yeah,
I'll just step in and say that the AL Central isn't the worst this year, and that's kind of neat.
It is. The Royals surprisingly are doing a lot better than I thought they were going to do.
Yeah.
Just don't look at the bottom team in that division, but everyone
else is doing pretty good. Worst team in the major league.
I was just looking like my favorite thing lately has been like everyone has just been dogpiling on the Mets being absolute garbage.
And the White Sox are worse.
And they are still like 12 games.
They have 12 more wins than the White Sox do.
Like how are you 6 games into the season having a run differential of a negative 139?
Because they suck.
How is that? What are you doing?
The White Sox are 0-10 in their last 10 games. I don't know how long their losing streak is, but it's at least
long
10
enough.
games. I
think it's 13 now.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
12. It's a 12.
Oh no. And they play Boston next. Oh no!
Surely that will end well.
No, we can't lose to them. No.
Oh, they're up 5. They're up 5-3 on the Cubs right now, though.
The Cubs are kind of trash.
How ironic!
That's surprising. The Cubs are kind of bad. I did not think they would be, but they kind of are.
They had that one good year, and
they had that one
same with Boston.
Boston's had a couple more good years.
I was going to say Chicago.
We've had Cubs 4 in like the past 2 decades.
Cubs fans definitely, remember. Was that 2016, 2017?
2016, yes.
It was. Everybody remembers that because it was like all you could hear when they got to the World Series was like, "Oh, it's been like 106 years."
Well, it had been.
It was something like that. I know it was over 100. That's all I remember, but it was a long time since then. So they must just be going for double or nothing at this point. Let's make it another 100 years. And then as a Cardinals fan, I actually haven't been watching a whole lot of baseball recently. I've just been kind of keeping up statistically. Cardinals are very much middle of the pack, which is a lot better than they were when we last recorded. It's kind of more surprising that they came back that much. They're not quite 500, but they could potentially. This is probably a long shot. They could potentially claw their way to postseason, but I think it's gonna be a rough road. But they seem to at least have found a groove, and they seem to be playing pretty well. So,
right,
we'll see. But yeah, MLB has not been my focus at all in the past month.
But it's gonna have to be.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I'll start watching
or not.
Well, the good news is we got past the. I don't want to call it the slump, but like now we're like into the heart of the season where it's like now it starts to take shape. So, but speaking of stickball, unless you were gonna say something else.
Well, Andy. I think we can breeze through football real quick because there's not.
We are all over the board on this.
Yeah, I know. That's fine. Football is going to be super quick.
Yeah, it really is.
The really only thing that happened with the NFL is the schedule release happened, and if the Chargers obviously won the schedule release video, I mean, that's fair. There are so many Easter eggs in that video that I still catch new ones every now and then. I'm like, that's in there too. It's oh my god, it's so freaking funny. And the shots that they had at Denver in it, I can't blame them for it because it's because the very first one that they had was Sean Payton going returning gifts, and he's returning like Jerry Jeudy, Russell Wilson, Justin Simmons. It's so freaking funny.
I need to go back and watch it. It's been long enough.
And then the second one was like, in the Sims where you have like the 4 options of whether you want to choose what to do. And I don't remember all 4 of the options, but it was like, eat the dead cap space, draft a franchise quarterback. Like it's so freaking funny. And then the fact that they put Harrison Butker in the kitchen.
I wonder what they were alluding. I wonder what they were alluding to there.
Yeah, I wonder what they were alluding to too, Zach. Nothing problematic that happened or anything with him. Oh my god!
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
That was so.
I just thought Harrison Butker was a good cook.
Sure.
Still, also one of the best names for a kicker.
Kicker, yes.
Regardless of his beliefs over here, Butker as your last name as a kicker, yes. Awesome.
But what I love that the NFL keeps doing is sending Jacksonville to every international game that they possibly could send them to. Because not only did they get to play 1 this year, they get to play 2 back-to-back weeks.
The only positive with that I could see is that at least once they get over there, they just have to
you're
stay
there. Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, that still kind of goofs with your like clock in terms of like sleep and whatnot, but they probably have pretty fancy beds and stuff on the plane, so they'll be fine.
And I know everybody's ready for the super thrilling Germany game between the Giants and the Panthers.
Dude.
How do you want to extend your reach in the NFL abroad? Let's send the Giants and the Panthers abroad. To play a game.
Far be it from me I'm biased in the sense, but like if I was going to go to an overseas game at all, I'd want to go to the Eagles one because at least the Eagles can put on a decent show. And like if they're clicking correctly, which it's the first game of the season, so maybe not the best example, but like if they're at least clicking, they got an offense that can do a lot. And that's what the NFL wants to sell is that. But
it's a bad game, and they're going to sell it out because it's people in Europe that get to like experience a NFL game for the first time, and it's kind of similar to what kind of the Premier League does in like the off season where they do. I know Chelsea did this a couple of years ago, where like they'll do a summer tour in the United States where like they'll play MLS teams as like an exhibition game. So it's the same situation where like, it's going to be a bad game because it's the Giants and Panthers, but to them, they're like, this is an NFL game. Like, we don't know what this means, but we're going to go see an NFL game in person because it's, in our country this time. But yeah, they could have chose better teams to pick that game for.
So I'm always curious. I'm always curious if they have like the slots picked out and then they wait until the schedule comes out. Like we want them this weekend and this weekend, and then they're like, they look at the schedule like, shit, what do we do? Like, you know, but like I don't know, like that doesn't make sense because there are a bevy of other games that they could pick from to be like, we're going overseas, but who knows?
But yeah, I mean, outside of that, I mean, you have, you know, marquee matchups of definitely the opening. I mean, we knew about this too, but the opening, very first game of the season between the Ravens and Chiefs on Thursday, it's going to be baller. You know, whether I don't know who's going to win that game. Obviously, I'm not cheering for the Chiefs, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good primetime matchups this year that, you know, obviously the Chiefs are going to be in a lot of them, which
all I know about the Ravens
so,
and the Chiefs game for the first game of the season is that after whoever wins, there will be nothing but level-headed takes about both teams based on whoever wins. If the Chiefs win, another Super Bowl. If the Ravens win, Chiefs are washed. So it's like
I don't see any flaw in this. It's going to be
nothing but level-headed takes, and nobody's going to overreact after the first game of the season. Just saying.
And then the Christmas Day games are going to be on Netflix. Like, what are we doing?
Lame.
It's guys just got to start beating it into your head. Like, you know, oh yeah, I want to watch the NFL games on Netflix. Start saying it now. You'll get used to it come Christmas time. Or you'll give yourself CTE.
Or
maybe
we could just bring cable back, and then none of this would be an issue.
No.
Do you think cable companies are sitting there like, wow, like, you know, we thought the streaming thing was going to take off, and it did, but now they're like, everybody's coming back to cable. Idiots.
Because everybody is bundling streaming services together, and it's like, that's cable.
I think my favorite part, though, is that I want to be in the boardrooms. This is completely unrelated right now, other than it's sports tangentially related, is that I want to be in the boardroom when they name these bundling applications. It's because like I don't get it. So what's the one that we were talking about here like a couple weeks ago? Whatever it's called. It was like that's what they came up with.
Oh, I don't remember.
I could go back.
I don't know, but I'm fully expecting one of them to be like Boingo or something.
But like that's not far off.
Hell yeah.
Like I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm a marketing expert because I'm not. But like, what are we doing with some of these names? They're just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's what the world is going to, and yeah. Outside of that, I mean, I'm just excited to now kind of mentally prepare to be disappointed on those Sundays of who we play now. But Denver, I think, has 2 primetime games. That's probably more than they should need or have. But and one's a Thursday night game, so that's perfect prime slot for them, which I think is the Saints game, and that's Sean Payton's return to New Orleans. So that's that's going to be a good storyline. But or the Monday night game.
Was it last year or 2 years ago, or maybe even more than that, when Denver had like what felt like every other freaking primetime game was theirs?
It was 2 years ago because it would have been when Russ came to Denver.
That was it was Russ's first year. I just remember it was just like Denver. Then 2 weeks later, Denver. Like we get it.
Sucked. Hated that season.
And then that was the best part is like
Hackett's an awful coach.
They were not real good. So then it was like we got through 3 of them, and Andy was just like, yeah, can we stop with the prime time?
And Andy was like, sorry, we have 12 more to go.
And they didn't flex any of them out, and I don't know why.
I thought they flexed out like the very last one. It was very clear at that point.
They waited too long to do it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Is like it was very clear at the point. We're like, yeah, I think this one might be over.
They waited way too long to do it. It's fine.
It must just be the same kind of scheduling method that they use for overseas games.
But then quickly on the college football front.
But before we go to that, Justin Jefferson's making a lot of money.
That's right. Cool. This is when they wanted to start off the show, and then he didn't do it.
Honestly, I think, call me crazy, outside of the schedule release, that might be the biggest news that came out in the last month. I really don't think, which is a huge deal because now the wide receiver market for now is actually the greatest thing about that is that Jerry Jones, once again, Mr. Dallas,
gonna have to pay CD Lamb that much.
CD Lamb a shitload of money.
Yep.
Or CD Lamb's going to walk. Both of which are going to be
very stupid for Dallas.
You're welcome, NFL.
So yeah, I was going to say, but then
as a dynasty owner of CD Lamb, I would prefer if he does walk to go to a very pass happy team.
What is Justin Jefferson guaranteed? Is it 110? 10? Okay.
Yeah.
Because then I saw a thing that AJ Brown and Devontae Smith for the Eagles, because they did it earlier, their guaranteed money hit for both of them. Mm-hmm. I think it's guaranteed money. Could be wrong. Is $134 million, and it's like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson is 100% worth the money he's going to be making. Not denying that, provided he doesn't get hurt. But you can never guarantee that. So
are you saying Kirk Cousins doesn't deserve his $130 billion contract? I know it's out $130 million. That's pretty much what Atlanta's going to be paying him.
But
now, hold on.
Michael Penix might.
We're talking specifically just about receivers here. QBs are in a market of their own, and no offense to Kirk. Well, who knows? Atlanta might not be having many picks because Kirk decided to say, yeah, they called me before the deadline. It's like, dude, the one thing you're not supposed to say, and he just
sorry, Kirk is getting paid $180 million. My bad.
Is that all guaranteed though?
No,
I didn't think so. Still a lot of money. I'm not denying that.
His agent's a hell of a fleece job.
No kidding.
Yep.
Or is that more?
It ain't Kirk's ability. I know that.
Well,
it's the coal swagger, man.
Now that he doesn't, I was going to say it's his pizza.
It's irresistible.
It's his Pizza Ranch pizzazz. But, obviously his agent did his job well.
Right. And then I think it was Mishap came out like a couple of days ago during OTAs. And it's like, yeah, we're going to be like a run heavy offense now, like San Francisco is with Christian McCaffrey.
Do they know what they're doing over there?
No.
Now,
Arthur Smith was leading them. Of course they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, but who did they get? Because they got a new head coach.
It's Raheem Morris, isn't it? Okay. The Rams defensive guy or offensive guy, whatever it was.
Either way, got to be an upgrade. All I know, and I said this before, as long as they start using Kyle Pitts like he was supposed to be used in the NFL, which would be great.
Don't bank on it.
Yeah, good luck.
Who knows? Maybe he'll go to defense. I don't know.
Remember, like when Darren Waller had that good year or two, and then he is now retired.
That's not official yet, is it?
No, it's not. But it probably
they're basically
will happen.
the Giants or whatever, wherever he plays now, are like, we're expecting him to retire.
Yeah.
Well, I can't blame him. I wouldn't
pursue his rap career.
I wouldn't want to play for Danny Dimes either. No offense.
Yeah, Mr. Dollars to you, sir.
Mr.
Has he upgraded?
So we got Kirk, Coles, Cash, Cousins. We got Danny, Mr. Dollars, Jones.
And don't forget Zach, Mr. Steal Your Ma, Wilson.
Ooh.
Yeah, but see, he plays for your team now. So.
Yeah, I know it.
He's going to be leading Denver to the promised land.
Of every mom's home.
I mean...
Spot the lie.
What do you expect from a guy that came from BYU?
To not know about that.
Fame changes a person, Andy. I didn't say the fame necessarily was good. It just changes a person.
Oh boy. All right. College football now. Kind of the biggest before we get into the quick quib notes of Nebraska's somewhat announced schedule for kickoffs is the biggest thing that did come out that is still like very mucky up in the air is that the Power 5 conferences did come to like an agreement deal of $2.7 billion with the NCAA to one, pay retributions all the way back to 2016 to college athletes, and then going forward, we'll have a revenue sharing model of about $20 million each year to every Division I school in terms of paying players is what it comes down to. Now, how that looks, how that's going to work in terms of does NIL get phased out to support this? No idea. And that's still very much going to be figured out in courts because I think the NCAA is probably going to need Congress's help to kind of help legislate that essentially. But it's a step in the right direction in terms of, advancing NIL and kind of making it a standard across the board in terms that the NCAA can recognize it now. The NIL doesn't have to be through third parties anymore or anything like that. But it's good to see that, half the reason they're going back to 2016 is that's when most of these lawsuits started happening so that the NCAA can kind of settle those court cases, just get those cases dismissed, get those paid, and then go forward with what they want to do. But I think it's supposed to kick in next year. So, they essentially kind of have a year to work around the logistics and the laws and details of how this is going to be enforced and policed going forward in terms of paying players. And, do you recognize them as employees of the university? Finally, are they under scholarship contracts essentially to where, you can get, as long as you stay with the university, you'll get paid this amount of a salary or annual budget type scholarship fee. And that if that does happen, that plays a huge impact on the transfer portal as well. But, it's all murky. It's all up in the air. And I think it only applies to Division I have no idea what happens with Division II or III, if it even applies to that, just because this agreement was between the Power 5 conferences. So who knows?
I wonder how that might affect, like the college football game that's coming out,
Yes.
They did NIL deals for the teams themselves so that they could, put their name and their likeness into the game.
Right.
But I'm curious if this changes that because, what's his face didn't do it from Texas. Is it Arch Manning?
Yeah, Arch Manning.
Yeah,
We had that talk.
I was gonna say I know it's not Quinn Ewers because he's on the cover.
Yep.
I was gonna say he's not only on the cover.
God, I forgot that happened.
When they did the gameplay deep dive, they were
But it looks like a real fool now with how cool it looks.
Yeah, and it's also this is related to NCAA football, but the game specifically, it looks pretty good. But
I forgot that happened.
But my favorite is that a bunch of people are being like, yes, my backup quarterback for Texas, March Anning.
Did you see when that gameplay trailer came out? I think it was one of the Texas State linemen who was a part of the gameplay graphics. He got injured and he was supposed to sub in. It's they were just showing the gameplay graphics. And of course, when you pick the sub in, they show the overall rating of the guy you're going to sub in. And he quote tweeted that still frame and he goes, 55 overall. What are we doing? And all the replies are like, dude, you're a backup lineman at Texas State University.
I think one of my favorites though, and I read more about this because I was intrigued, but in one of the moments it's on a kickoff, you can see that there are 2 number 40s on the field.
Yes.
And I guess it's technically allowed with kickoffs, but it's come on. At least,
All that to say, the game is going to be super cool. But
we hope.
Yeah,
it looks like it's going to be cool.
It looks like it's going to be cool. But we're all going to buy it just because it's the first game in 10 years that we're finally going to have access to, that we don't have to do customization of teams in terms of going back to NCAA 14 and updating rosters again type thing. But the game's going to be cool. The game's going to be cool. Man, we got really off topic. We got to continue on with the show.
Yeah.
regardless, the NCAA eventually is going to start paying players, probably starting next year. And that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, I am excited to see what your NIL options are in the game.
Yeah, I hope we get. I mean, I don't want it to turn into a micro economy system where you have to buy like in-game tokens with real money to get transfer portal players. I hope it's like
just you wait.
Yeah.
I know it's gonna happen, but I'm hoping they do some sort of system where like you earn in-game money by playing games, or if you land a high score recruit, you get like such amount of virtual in-game money you could spend, and you don't have to spend real money. Probably not going to happen. They'll probably will add that feature, but I think they did say the transfer portal was going to be in it, and trying to quote unquote bid on recruits for NIL and everything is going to be in there. So it's going to be pretty similar to like what a real college football team or system is going to look like, but
it sounds at least like the dynasty mode for it's not going to be the pay to play like you were just talking about.
Yeah.
The little ultimate team thing they have probably will be, to be honest, but from everybody that I know that's even going to be buying this game, they're going to be like, I'm not touching that mode. So
yeah, dynasty or road to glory. That's kind of my all I'm going for.
Yeah. I think our brains are entirely cooked this time around, guys.
I'm also excited for hopefully Coach Doug's to make a
yes,
yeah,
Big Cat
his comeback. Yeah,
even though he doesn't work at Barstool anymore.
Yeah, he does. Well, no, the actual guy. I was like, no, Big Cat still works at Barstool.
Yes, I know Big Cat does. Sorry, the guy they hired, the guy they hired that looked like Coach Doug's.
Yes. No, he doesn't work there anymore.
No.
But then before we get back to college baseball, the quick note, we did get some announcements for Nebraska kickoff times this year and the TV networks they're going to be on. So Nebraska is getting one majority bigger night games this year, which is more than I think we've had in the past 4 or 5 seasons, maybe 6.
It's great for the vibes.
Yes, it is. And a lot of that does help that a lot of this is based on TV networks dictating when these games want to be played. And I think that's, there's a pro and con to this. The con obviously being is Nebraska is going to host a Friday night football game for like the first time since 2001 or 2004. So that's going to be, I think, a very common trend going forward is Nebraska, my guess is probably going to play a Friday night football game every single year. It's just whether it's going to be away or at home. And it's probably going to be, like it is this year against Illinois. It's probably going to be against those teams like Illinois, Purdue, Minnesota. It's not your bigger marquee. Like you're not going to be playing, USC or Michigan or Ohio State on a Friday night. I mean, they just won't do that. But my guess is that'll probably be a continued trend as Nebraska will play these Friday night games in the future going forward, at least probably once a season. Rutgers has 2 this year.
2 Friday night games?
Yeah, one against USC. Super funny. But yeah, I mean, you start the season UTEP 2:30 kickoff on a Saturday on Big Fox, not just like FS1, like primetime 2:30 on Big Fox. You'll have that game, and then you go to next week against obviously the big game that everybody's looking forward to this year. Night game NBC against Colorado, which is vibes are going to be massive.
Because that's
massive
Lincoln,
for that game.
Right?
In Lincoln, night game under the lights on NBC. I mean, that's going to be huge in terms of it'll be a game that people will want for like the nonchalant factor, but I mean, your Coach Prime, I mean, people are going to be drawn to that. And, depending on how Nebraska looks in week 1, I mean, it's definitely going to be geared up for.
I was just going to say that's the game. I think everybody not to say that UTEP isn't.
You shouldn't overlook them. Knowing what we've done the past 6 years, like you cannot look over anybody.
And UTEP has actually been fairly decent recently, haven't they? So, I mean, like, but like if we look good and we can handle UTEP, everybody's going to be looking at that game. Like, this is where we find out who Nebraska is in year 2.
Right. And then, the next 3 games after UTEP are all night games. And then you go, 6:30 again on Saturday against Northern Iowa on Big Ten Network, which, to assume that game was going to be at least on a BTN or FS1 type broadcast. And then the week after that is, the Friday night home game against Illinois, also on Big Fox. So I'm very interested to see how Lincoln gets set up for that, because again, they haven't done that in decades. In terms of, they're probably gonna have to do something similar to what they did for volleyball day, because that was on a Wednesday at Memorial Stadium. So like they'll probably have to cancel classes. They'll probably have to, clear the parking lots for tailgaters, so on and so forth. Make sure like workers are there to, can do the concessions, and make sure like they have enough staff that would normally not be working on a Saturday that maybe have, are working their normal job on a Friday type thing. So that's going to be cool just to have a Friday night game in Memorial Stadium, but the logistics
high school football.
Yes. And I did see that that's the week that Bellevue West and Westside would play, which are like the top 2 teams in the state of Nebraska right now. They did move that game to Saturday for that reason.
I wondered about that, though. I wondered if a lot of high schools would.
That one is already moved. I'm going to guess probably the majority of the Friday night games are probably going to move to Saturday now.
Because, like, when I was in high school, we actually had a couple years where we played a Saturday evening game, which I thought was weird. It wasn't because of Nebraska football, but it was thrown in there on a Saturday. It was like, oh, yeah, I guess so. Maybe.
And then the fun Black Friday game against Iowa under the lights at Kinetic Stadium on NBC, which that's going to be, depending on where Nebraska is at that point. I mean, we obviously want to go in and kick their butts, but it's, hopefully we can be a little bit stress-free of a game, and maybe we're bowl eligible by then. But I mean, that's going to be probably a very cold game.
I think it also speaks, though, the fact that we have so many night games. The Friday night game's still weird to me, but like the fact we have so many night games must mean that like TV networks are like Nebraska could be on the rise here. And like you look at historically speaking with Matt Rule and his teams taking that big leap in year 2, and also having Dylan Raiola and having a spring game that like we looked somewhat competent in. And I understand, the argument against that is Nebraska was playing Nebraska. That doesn't mean a lot these last few years, but we could have an exciting year, and I'm calling exciting like a 7-5, 8-4 type year.
I'm definitely scared of where the Kool-Aid levels might be if that first part of the season goes as it could.
If we come out,
the lead up to Ohio State in like mid-October is interesting.
Which is why I mean that game will not be announced on what it is or what time until probably 2 weeks before that game, because it very much that will be dependent on if that is a big noon, 11 a.m. on Fox, depending on how Nebraska and Ohio State are doing at that point. And it could be very well an evening game. I'm sure if they're both doing well, Fox will want that to be their big noon game. I don't know what other games are going to go on that week. I haven't really looked that far ahead into it, but it's like, and that's the same probably with the USC game or the Wisconsin game. It'll all depend on what we look like and what those programs look like by the time we get to those games. What time they'll be on, and what TV network they're going to be on, and whether we get relegated to BTN or NBC or I don't know if we'll have a CBS game this year. I know we did last year with the Iowa game, but that's an option this year as well in terms of TV networks between Fox, NBC, and now CBS. That we'll have that as an option. But yeah, it's exciting to see these TV times announced and kind of getting your mind ready for primetime Husker football that we just have not had to enjoy. And we endured all these 11 a.m. games for so many years, which warranted. I don't blame them. Yeah, unless we have any other football thoughts, I think we'll wrap it up here with some college baseball. That is.
Well, we got one other thing we didn't talk about.
Yes.
But we'll be quick about this, because
I did forget about this.
Because now we've got the finals of the NHL, the Stanley Cup playoffs.
The other dead week sport we're waiting on.
Between the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers. And I think I looked and I read somewhere that like Florida hasn't ever won it. Or if they have, it's been very long since it's like one of those things where like kind of like the Super Bowl, like it was an era before the Stanley Cup or whatever. And then it's been like 30 years for Edmonton. So if nothing else, going to be an exciting matchup for two teams that haven't won it. If that thing is Florida's true, I don't know. But like two teams that either haven't won for a long time or have never won it, I guess. So go.
There are also two teams that are like the furthest away from each other.
Yeah,
for fun.
That'll be exciting. I think this is the longest like trip between Stanley Cup Finals games.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think they did the math on it, and like the distance is the farthest it's ever been. So
yeah, go Oilers.
Go
Connor McDavid.
We'll by the next time we record this, we'll know who won the Stanley Cup.
And it better be Connor McDavid and the Oilers.
That's right.
Go Canada.
Now we can wrap it up with, college baseball from the Husker perspective, because college baseball is still technically going on.
Yes. Yes. We'll start with Nebraska just because that's the more, I guess, not pressing, but more freshly on the brain. Unless you were like Nate and I were just watching Squeeze play all weekend.
That is an overwhelming experience for those who don't know about it.
It's red zone, but for college baseball, but with more games and more windows to be shown on your TV, and it gets hectic.
Baseball is a little faster paced when it's all going than when NFL is.
When you have six,
so that's how you speed up the game, huh? You just watch 6 different games at once.
6 different games that are all 20 seconds between pitches and very fast paced.
Nice.
But
that's even crazier too, because the college baseball game is already fast paced enough.
Correct.
And then it also, you don't get to select the window that it's getting audio from. So
they choose it for you.
You just kind of figure it out as you go.
You half the time don't know whether it's the in-studio announcers talking or if it's the actual announcers at the game talking.
10 out of 10.
Wait, does it switch between them?
The broadcast chooses for you which audio you listen to.
Okay, I didn't know that. Like based on your guys, I wasn't at home, so like based on your guys' pictures, I was like, oh, it looks very similar to like the multi-view on YouTube, except it has things instead.
They choose everything for you.
Then I thought it was basically like Red Zone though, where like they talk over it and then just kind of give you updates on what's going on.
They do that. They do that, but they also go live to the audio in the game.
So they intersperse it between.
Yeah.
That's
and they don't really tell you when.
And you don't know which is which. You just have to guess.
Does it ever have like those weird cutoffs where like they're talking in studio and all of a sudden it just dips into something else and you're like, what was that? Like you notice it kind of thing?
Probably did happen.
It might have.
The fact you guys didn't ever.
I was too deep into sensory overload at that point.
Okay, fair enough. I'll give you that. That's a lot.
Last time we talked, Nebraska was just finishing up the regular season in terms of hoping for a Big Ten regular season championship. They did not. They did fall a game short of that. Illinois did win the Big Ten regular season standings, but then you get to the Big Ten tournament. Nebraska is the 2 seed. Got absolutely throttled game 1. And you're thinking like, oh, maybe 7-3, 8-2. No, they got 10-run ruled in the first game, 15-2. I think 15-2. They got throttled by Ohio State game 1. And, all the good vibes from the regular season of, we were almost there. We're going to have such a good run. Probably pretty much immediately went down the drain. And you're like, well, crap. Now you have to absolutely win every single game from here on out, and you get no break. And to my surprise and to the team's grit, they kept doing it. They played Purdue the next game, won that with Brett Sears pitching. And then they get the rematch against Ohio State the next game where Mason McConaughey, the number 2 pitcher, shuts them down again. And then you get to now you have to beat Indiana twice, who went through the top portion of their winners bracket to get there. First game, Will Walsh pitched a complete game, 9 innings, complete game win. He did that last year at the Big Ten tournament when he also pitched a complete game against Michigan State. So Will Walsh just loves pitching in the Big Ten tournament because he pitches complete game bangers and wins all of them. Nebraska won that game, and then they played later on in the evening against Indiana again. Did win that game, advanced to the Big Ten championship against Penn State, which was a very pitchers duel type showdown up until about the 7th inning, where red hot catcher Josh Caron, who broke a Big Ten tournament record of most home runs in a tournament. He had 6. Did hit one that game, tied Nebraska the lead, and then the eventual Gabe Swanson, who was hot during the Big Ten tournament, had his hero moment where he had the bases low. No, he had a runner on second with 2 outs and a full count in the top of the 9th. Hits a double to left, scores the run. Nebraska does get the lead 2-1. They bring in Brett Sears to close the game out, pitches 13 innings. Nebraska wins their first Big Ten championship since coming into the Big Ten. It's their 6th conference title. Their first, I don't remember the last one there was, but it's essentially their first one since they joined the Big Ten from the Big 12. And all things considered, I think that was probably the most impressive part of the season is, they did win the Big Ten tournament the hard way. They had to do it the hard way. And then you get to regionals. I thought they had a favorable draw. Turns out they did not have a favorable draw. Probably would have been better going to Oklahoma like they were predicted to go in the first place. But they get the Stillwater Regional against Oklahoma State, Florida, and Niagara. And Florida, for all things considered, was a lot of uproar about why they got in at 28 and 27 or whatever they were, barely above 500. But turns out it was warranted because they did end up winning the Stillwater Regional and knocking out Oklahoma State, which it's very funny because Oklahoma State, for the 3rd year in a row, hosting a regional, has not advanced out of their own regional 3 years in a row. So that's pretty bad on Oklahoma State's part to do that 3 times in a row, hosting and not make it out of your regional. But yeah, Nebraska goes 1-2 in the regional, loses to Florida twice, and the second game was super weird. Very offensive, which is not what Nebraska has done. The pitching did eventually catch up to them, which was what I thought their issue was kind of all year. Is once you get outside Brett Sears and Mason McConaughey, you're kind of up in the air on your starting pitcher, your bullpen pitchers who can come in and lock down a game. But all things considered, Nebraska finishes the season 40-22 or 40-23. Their first 40-win season since 2014. So I don't know. You kind of look at postseason success as kind of your definition for the season, but all things considered, Nebraska, I thought, did what they needed. I mean, it's probably their best season they've had in much recent terms. Probably Will Bolt's best season by far. You get, like I said, the most program wins since 2014. You win the Big Ten tournament for the first time since joining the league. And what I kind of told you guys is this probably is the stepping stool or the stepping stone that Will Bolt needs to, you've had that taste of success in the postseason. You kind of know what you need to do now that you face, an SEC type caliber team in the biggest moment of your season. Now, how do you build on that? How do you kind of build a program around who you bring in, what guys you want to build your program around with? And they definitely have a lot of good returning pieces for next year, whether those guys choose to go to the draft or stay here and build the program. But yeah, I thought it was a good season for Nebraska, and definitely one of my favorite seasons of tracking them in quite some time. But just in terms of the success that they had, I mean, we had that no-hitter from Jackson Brockett earlier in the season, which was a super fun game.
And the team he no-hit is now going to
the
regional. So.
And Kansas State, which props to them for going into Fayetteville and knocking out Arkansas twice.
The Omaha Hawks.
Yeah, the Omaha Hawks not anymore. But yeah, it's going to be very very interested to see who stays and who goes and what the roster looks like next year for baseball. But I definitely think this was the boost and the lift that they needed to succeed and, try to one up themselves next year and, try to win the Big Ten regular season, still try to win the Big Ten tournament. But, I think the goal for next year is probably to host a regional. Because if you win a couple of those conference games, and certainly if they had won more of the midweek season games that they did, Nebraska was very much on the fringe of hosting or should have hosted a regional. They just had probably 4 or 5 more games go their way this season. Then you're talking about a 45, 46 win team, which is usually good enough to get you to host a regional in that sense. But yeah,
would have helped if they wouldn't have sucked during the week or whatever it was.
Yes, the midweek games. Yeah. And I think that's something Will Bolt probably has to look into is, you can have your 1-2 starter pitchers, but come the Sunday games, come the midweek games when you're relying on who's your number 3 pitcher, who are your bullpen pitchers that you have left over from the weekend. Like, you need to build that depth because that's going to help you going forward. As we saw in the regionals, it's what you need when you're playing, 3-4 games in 3 days or 5 games in 3 days type thing.
That was the positive that I took from, and you guys, I think, followed the college baseball scene more than I did in terms of Nebraska, at least, which next year I'm going to try to do better about. But like this year, I remember you guys talking multiple times about how, like, this is a glaring issue. Like this part of that part. So it's like, we know that we have the issues. We see where the issues came to play, especially, in the, in the regional. So it's like, now if you can shore that up at least to a somewhat degree, and you can play as well as you did like this year, if you can play that well next year, you could make a legitimate run.
Yeah. And they certainly have the talent to do that. Again, it all depends on who's going to come back next year and what the offense looks like. But I mean, they have a lot of juniors. There's a couple of freshmen and sophomores that stepped up big this year. So, really the biggest pieces you lose are Brett Sears, your ace pitcher, and Ben Columbus, your first baseman. But outside of that, I mean, a lot of the other big contributors were all, juniors or below. So if you can get them to stay another year and not, declare for the draft or, try to test the draft or anything, I mean, you have a lot of good returning production for next year, which I think is, like I said, the stepping stone that you need to, kind of one up yourself and try to get back that program that they had in the 2000s that were making those College World Series runs for Nebraska. It helps to have when you have, MLB All-Stars like Java Chamberlain and Alex Gordon on your team. That tends to help out a lot, but it was a fun season for them and kind of, branching to just the overall college baseball scope. A lot of surprise teams get knocked out. LSU did kind of take North Carolina to the last brink, which that was a really fun regional game. But, teams that got knocked out early before they even made it to the finals, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Wake Forest, Texas, your prototypical powerhouse baseball teams that you expect to get to the super regionals aren't there anymore. And now you're talking about Evansville and UConn getting to the super regionals.
Typical powerhouses. What do you mean?
Yeah, typical powerhouse baseball programs. Dan Hurley, he's got some sort of weird voodoo magic apparently on UConn now because they're just suddenly good at everything. But outside of that, I mean, you have 5 ACC teams and 5 SEC teams in your super regionals, which probably will make up most of the College World Series, if not all those teams. But we are rooting for the Missouri Valley Conference and we're rooting for Evansville. That's what you need to know if you take anything away from this.
Works for me.
Yeah.
And the 2 Pac-12 teams that will no longer be in their conferences, I kind of want one of them to make it just to be like, your conference is dying and yet you're going to the College World Series between Oregon or Oregon State.
I'm very interested in that Oregon State Kentucky.
Yes,
matchup. I think that'll be a pretty good series. So.
Yes, and it's
didn't the rest? This is more related to Big Ten, but didn't the rest of the Big Ten also struggle in their regionals too?
Yeah.
So I mean, I think not necessarily going back to the Nebraska point though. It's like not just Nebraska that
No, it's
failed necessarily. It's the Big Ten just is, or maybe reverse. The SEC is just on another level in baseball.
They are. Oh, they definitely are. I mean, they're easily the best.
I think we all knew that, but like that, just if you didn't know that, now you do.
But it's like the Big Ten is just never really invested in baseball as much as it does for football. And I mean, yes, the SEC and ACC and Big 12 all invest in, football as well. But, they also heavily invest in these other sports. And, the Big 12 and SEC, I think, are in the ACC are your top 3 baseball conferences by far, that their conference cares about that sport. And the Big 10 just is kind of like, we're just not going to invest that heavily in it.
To be fair, I think in baseball, especially, weather is a little more of a factor, because like if you come to Nebraska to play football, like you're maybe 1 or 2 games going to be cold. You might have a snow game once every 4 years or something, but like playing baseball in like
in the middle of
42 degrees and sleet is probably not super appealing for a lot of players. So
it's Tennessee I'm interested to see. I mean, they play Evansville, so obviously I'm rooting for Evansville, but no number 1 overall seed has won the College World Series since I think 1993. So
that's an interesting stat.
Yeah, and I think Miami was the last team to do it. So it'll be interesting to see if like the number 1 overall. I mean, Tennessee is good this year. Like they're good, but it's apparently the curse of the number 1 overall seed that just can never win. Which is, I mean, it's the same as like basketball too. Is the number 1 overall seed usually never wins March Madness or anything like that, unless you're UConn. Unless you're UConn and do it twice. But I'm excited for them, but I'm also a baseball fan, so I know it doesn't apply to everybody, but they're going to be good games. And I hope DJ Burns is at the NC State series. I hope he just makes it.
I hope he's on the team.
Did you guys see pictures of him recently? Speaking of which,
yes,
he lost a crap load.
I know.
Followed up by this wasn't Ozempic. Like,
yeah, he probably had to like be good for draft eligible teams in the NBA. But
I'm sure. He looks completely different. And like, no kidding, when you lose that much weight, I get it. But like, it was like I think I saw it on Twitter or whatever. He was like, there was a picture of him before and then after. And I'm like, that's not the same guy. And then I looked at more pictures and like, nope, that's him.
Right.
Now he just looks like a basketball player. Not
sure does.
Not Big Chungus, the basketball player.
Oh,
props to him because he was a good
Chungus.
Basketball player. But it was just, not your typical looking, 7'2" guy that always seems to go to Purdue.
And they got another one.
They just got another one.
Yep. Damn 7-footers anyway. Bunch of cheating hacks.
I don't know what Matt Painter does, but he's really good at recruiting 7-foot centers. But all right.
I think that's
it.
Covers all the that covers every single sport ever. In the history of the world.
If you wanted a little tad bit note, I guess by the time this comes out, it'll be like 84 days. But as of this moment, there's 86 days until Husker kickoff. In case you wanted to know. But by the time this comes out, it'll be like 84 days. But just in case you were counting down the lonely days until football comes back.
And in a shocking twist, I somehow acquired 84 gallons of Kool-Aid. So.
One
you have to
each
chug
day.
You have to chug a gallon every day.
Every day.
But the full thing, all at once.
We'll throw it back to the Vine gallon challenge.
Oh my!
No.
And on that
note,
we thank you everyone for tuning in. We appreciate everyone who interacts with us and supports us and gives us a chance to do this. We thank you for bearing with us. It's been a little bit since we've recorded, so we're still shaking off a little bit of the rust, but as soon as we start hitting our stride in football season, we'll be ready for it all. So thank you again. We can't wait to see you in the next episode. And as always, this is the Sportsball Podcast. your source for sports.